Hi guys, I want to introduce Charles again. This is video 2 in a video series talking about bowel cancer and how Charles is dealing with bowel cancer using exercise as one of the things. Video 1, exercise to help Charles with early diagnosis. So moving on from early diagnosis, Charles, what are you going to let us know today?
Well, as I said in video 1, what happened very briefly with me was that in the April time I was training for the Edinburgh Half Marathon. Ended up with much more symptoms while I was running at Chesterley Street Park. Went to the RVI, got diagnosed as a colonoscopy, there it was, bowel cancer, which absolutely devastated me.
Yeah, of course,
I mean,
definitely.
I was blown away with the fear that this is a death sentence. The weeks that followed, immediately after that, I was more or less put in to get a scan, got a scan, which allowed them to sort of give a better diagnosis, a broader diagnosis of what it was about. And it was in the sort of May time, that's when the consultant said to me, look, this is curative, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to get chemo and radiotherapy and then surgery at some point when we know a bit more. So for people who might go through this, particularly it is fearful.
Yep.
But once what they call their sort of surgical and other members of their team get together, they start to look at your diagnosis, look at your symptoms, and they plan an action. And that made it better for me because I had a clearer understanding of what was going to happen. So after the scan, I was then booked in to get 5 weeks of chemo and 5 weeks of radiotherapy, which were regularly going up to the RVI. And getting all of this sort of procedure done. Because of the fact it was more action, there was treatment, I felt a lot better about that.
Yeah, definitely.
And the other bit is, of course, that they pre-warn you about things like chemo and radiotherapy, all of the side effects.
Yeah.
Now, for me, and I've got to give that as a sort of health warning to folk, that for me, I didn't have any side effects at all. I was very lucky. And what I did during that time was to keep training.
Yeah.
I kept going to the gym and seeing you, and I kept going out and jogging for myself, and that made me even feel better. Now, for other folk who might see this video or know of people who are going through chemo and radiotherapy, their experiences might be totally different. They might be getting symptoms and problems associated with it, but for me it was okay.
Do you think, Charles, that because you're active and you're proactive mentally and you put your head in a strong place and you kept training throughout and you charged into it head first, do you think that would have helped with your chemotherapy and really?
It helped psychologically, definitely, and I think obviously it helped in as much as I was active, I was combating possible infections.
Yep.
And this is not for everybody, can I say, and this is important as well, Glenn, that not everybody will want to go out and do 3-mile running.
Everyone doesn't, do they?
And nobody wants to come into a gym and do weights and do cardio stuff and doing the plank and doing press-ups. My position is that if you go for a decent walk, say 20 minutes, take a dog out. If you haven't got a dog, take somebody else's dog out. But have a plan for each day. One of the things that I found was very, very helpful was me in the garden. I built some raised beds. Once I knew about this was a way of me getting in control. So I built raised beds and I started to grow veg.
That's awesome
veg
advice,
for me. So I did that.
So you're goal driven, you had a goal all the time. That's great advice.
Did that.
Great
and I think the other bit is I've got a faith as well, and I held on to the faith because I think health is not just about physical health. It's about psychological health, but it's also about spiritual health. And spiritual health to me is also about friends and family. And I think that I was very lucky that very close friends were closely supporting me. Family was brilliant. The work I did with you added to it. So I had strands in my life where I was sharing things and talking to folks and getting help. So I think for that period, that's the important thing.
So that spiritual health doesn't necessarily mean religion.
Not
Because
at
I
all.
have spiritual health. I'm into it as well, Charles, as you know. I'm not religious. So it's just whatever that means to you.
Spiritual health could be taking your dog for a walk in the woods and looking at the trees and looking at the clouds. That's
hugging the trees.
Hugging the trees, which I do.
Yeah, me too.
So in essence, what we're up to now is we've completed the chemo and the radiotherapy, and I'm guessing the next part is what happened when we started to get into the surgery bit.
Cool. Well, that's a good bit. Should we talk about all the things that we did prior to going to surgery on the next video?
Absolutely.
Cool. So
Absolutely.
any takeaways from this video? Any your top tip from this video?
I think the top tips are try to be as active as you can, you know, and that's dependent on your age and your ability.
Yep.
Even if you can manage a walk, or doing some easy exercises sitting in a chair, gardening, taking the dog for a walk, as I say. The other bit is about psychological help, and if you need to get psychological help, such as in counselling, get that, but talk to people. Talk to people about your fears without it becoming too dark, but use friends and family. The other bit is about spirituality, and I think that links with friends and family, and I think it links with walking, and walking out into the countryside,
Cool.
and looking at the trees and the flowers. And I think those are the ones that I get. But
Awesome.
understand your body.
So all of that's being proactive, and all of them is taking
Yeah.
action.
Yeah,
So everything Charles said there is all taking action. None of it is just sitting down, taking it for granted. Agreed?
That's the way I think.
Yeah, brilliant. So we've got to go. Thank you for that, awesome Charles.
Okay, mate.
We'll do the next one soon.